Okay, well, as I began our introduction here, I was discussing the fact that we are looking at implementing digital voice radio, and we have had the experience of using System Fusion and developing the WiresX network in our community and around the world. We see what that can do, and now we're looking at what is our next step in digital voice. What I want to emphasize with you today is what makes System Fusion work so well and the Hotspots work so well is you as the user determine who you want to go speak with, what part of the world, what users do you want to reach out to. In HF, traditionally with ham radio, we would go to different bands, different frequencies, and find propagation took us somewhere in the world, and we'd talk to people we'd never talked to, learn things we'd never learned. But as we all have been talking about today, that propagation isn't the same as it used to be, and now we're limited so much on HF with how easily we can talk around the world, how effective it is. But that's really not the main point either. The main point, too, to consider is digital communications gives us things in amateur radio we've never had before. And I believe System Fusion and Hotspots gives you as hams the ability to go directions, places, experiment with things that you've never been able to experiment with before. So you can choose the destination. There has recently been a big boost in interest in System Fusion in Alaska. We're seeing a lot of, I knew that was going to happen. We're seeing a lot of Australian interest. The UK is full of interest. You may have heard that recently on the activity that's even been going on locally. And we have our familiar System Fusion groups, the rooms as we call it, that we've gotten to know. So it's exploding. I hear all the time. I'm new to this. I just got started with this. It's an everyday experience hearing that on the air. So what does the digital world does for you is it's easier than ever for you to take communications not only to another place in the world, but to bring it with you. That is to say, you travel somewhere, what System Fusion repeater do you have that you can reach back to home with? Or as you are here, who is it you want to visit with somewhere else where you know they're traveling? It's possible to look at groups, as you did on HF, in a geographical area or in an area of interest. The repeater, traditionally, was an end itself. Years ago when we put up a repeater, we said, oh, we've got 20-mile coverage, we've got 30-mile coverage. Everybody can get involved in talking together in groups, and it flourished at the time. But the repeater is in and of itself not enough. And digital voice gives us an opportunity to change that. The repeater is not the end itself, rather it's a port. So what we have done, as you know, is we've set up multiple repeaters, and every one of those repeaters networks together to form essentially a cluster of communications ports, because it's just a function to a greater end, which is digital voice. What makes digital voice so effective, and we've talked about this before, you can see the videos I've posted, if you do a comparison of the quality of voice that comes through digital voice, it's unequaled. What makes that so unique is the fact that while analog takes your signal and it's modified many times over before it gets to its destination, it can be modified by the repeater, it can be modified by the receiving circuits. That analog waveform varies as it goes. But with digital, the moment you start talking on your radio, what's called the vocoder creates a digitized packet. And it is turning it into ones and zeros, just like your computer software, just like digital everywhere that we know in our world. And so what happens is you no longer have this vulnerable waveform. You have this file being created, these packets of information being created that can be processed and used anywhere. So they can go to somebody on the other end of the world. They can go to somebody on another mode. But it is not a volatile piece of information. It's got error correction. It will arrive at the destination. The person who hears you on the other end will hear just what went into your vocoder. That makes it so effective. We tried linking years ago, and one of the things that you always notice with analog linking is how muffled someone might sound or how it would deteriorate the audio. No more. You hear somebody in Japan, you hear somebody across the world. They sound like the audio that went into the microphone. The WiresX digital network has provided us with an opportunity to develop an infrastructure. Our newer guys, this is something that we've again been learning as we have experimented with it in the last couple of years. We are connecting our repeaters to internet sources that give us both the organization and the ability to direct our conversations wherever we want to go. And what's made it so easy for us is not only price point that is out there for us, but also the fact that we can connect, as we mentioned at breakfast, through RF linking, a home system back to the tower. So you can connect literally anybody at a home can set up one of these WiresX digital node stations. So your station at home may have in the past been just HF radio and a 2-meter antenna, and you worked the world and that was fine. Now you can implement something far more. We'll talk about hotspots, but you can also add a digital node. And on this node, places where there are no repeaters at all, and there was no opportunity to use a handheld or mobile to talk to anyone, set up a digital node station at your home, put it on a reasonable antenna, and provide worldwide communications to your community, to your fellow hams, or for your own use. So this WiresX digital network, by way of the way Yaesu manages it on the internet, gives us this digital infrastructure. So the server is hosted by the room, as in a specific place in which we all function together, which we'll look at soon. It allows for virtually unlimited number of users to come and go. The WiresX system that we are using allows for, at times, groups of over 100 different repeaters or nodes and more to come together and all hear the same thing shared together. Other times, we may have a private and a quiet system. But the point is, it's completely flexible. You, as the user, choose who you want to talk with, where you want to go. And we also realize, too, that with what's been given to us in this infrastructure, the user has complete flexibility. And that's important because when you buy a radio, you're not buying just a way of communicating to a local system. You are, with WiresX, given the opportunity to communicate around the world by learning how to use your radio, by learning how, as a user, to access that system and control it. We talked a little bit about what a WiresX station would involve. This is kind of a simple layout to give you that information. Again, you can set this up at your home, but what we are doing here in our community is we have 2 of these set up for both repeaters that we use, so that when you are on the repeater talking digital, it is coming back through this node station and going into the network. So it makes it very flexible for us. When you're learning WiresX, one of the things you want to know about your radio and who you will connect to is to how to see online who's out there and how it is that you could possibly connect to them. So Yaesu offers, and there are other sources on this, by the way, but this is the basic one that Yaesu serves. They offer a rooms list easily available through a browser. And what that list will do is tell you, where could I connect to someone, who are they, what club, what organization hosts it. When you see this web page, you have tabs on the top, and you can actually do a search by way of those tabs. In this case, the tab that has been clicked here is activity. In the case of activity, we see the most activity here with the Japan room, followed by America Link, and on goes down the list until we see that the numbers decrease into the 20s and teens. So it can be sorted. We're going to sort it next based on state. So when we sort it on state, we see Minnesota, and we see these are all rooms that are hosted in Minnesota. We have here the St. Peter Club, which we are not using, but it's available. Here's Minwis, which is very active out of the Twin Cities. And here's the Dark Room, which we are very active with, hosted in Little Falls. So you can sort according to columns and see what is available. The reason I'm telling you that is, as a WiresX user, for you to go wherever you want to go, you want to look and get familiar with the specific number set that goes with the room, so that you're able to go to your radio and say, I'd like to talk to these people on Minwis, or I'd like to talk to these people here. And you look at the corresponding number and you can enter that into your WiresX control, your radio, to end up communicating with that group. What kind of group is on the other end, we see demonstrated here on the WiresX software. Users will not see this software because this is hosted on the node. But the reason I show it to you is it shows you how much information is going out on the air when you communicate. And when you're on the air talking to a specific room you choose, it shows here in the software each individual user node that is connected. This is a room we're frequently connected to called the dark room, and you can see the different repeaters throughout the state of Minnesota that are connected. For those who aren't as familiar with it, the point is, when you're in this room and you talk, your voice, your digital voice, is being rebroadcasted to every one of these nodes. So it's a community. It becomes a community group in itself. Again, the repeater is not an end. The repeater is a port. And now you function together with a new community. And when you are on the air, the services that the digital is offering you can be seen in this mobile users list. You transmit, your call sign is immediately given, so you are legally ID'd by the digital information going out. It tells your ID for your specific radio, so if the day comes where you've lost your radio, it's stolen, or we simply want to find out who is accidentally transmitting, the radio ID stamp is in the digital format. And this will show you as well, categorizing either last received and so on, giving you, if you have location information on your radio, your exact coordinates. I give an example. One time years ago, it wasn't that long ago I guess, when we first put it up, I had noticed a visitor with a 4 call came through. And I could see that on the display, and a 4 call, that's interesting. I wasn't on the air at the time, so I checked in and I went, okay, I'm going to see where that lines up here. So I did a last received, and there was that 4 call, and I thought, I wonder where they're from. Are they local? Whatever the case may be. So I looked up their position information and I researched it on Google, and they were at the Walmart distribution center. So it told me they were a trucker, and they had just stopped by and had to just keyed up and maybe ID'd into our local repeater. That's the kind of helpful information that's out there that we can use. So when we talk about a community in the digital group, this again is something many of us are familiar with, but for background, we have often operated in this room called the dark room, which is what our UHF repeater is connected with. This gives you an idea of coverage area. We can now add Grand Forks, and we're looking at others who will join us as well. And so when you now identify with a group like this, we have potential for not only the development of ham fellowship and interest together, but the potential in the future for public service work, passing information. I look at it this way too, that if a community has lost internet, a community has suffered some kind of a difficult situation where their infrastructure has been damaged, no internet, you can take an RF node radio and send internet to that repeater from a distance and put it on the air, so that if, say for example, a community is now cut off and they need internet service to the repeater, it can be sent over a distance off an RF node. So there is a lot of potential in the system itself, and that's what the WiresX network supports us doing. We don't want to leave out anybody. Don is settling down in Florida, and that is another part of the dark room. So Don sets up his node at home in Florida, and we hear him regularly, just like he is local. Okay, I've talked about WiresX. Some of you are very familiar with it. Some of you are still learning, and we're all learning about it, but it's a fantastic infrastructure Yaesu set up to go with their repeaters, to go with their radios. So when we go portable, it's wonderful. We travel, we can connect back, we can talk to different groups, but we have some limitations. Those limitations are being addressed. One of the first limitations that we deal with is the fact that you can't just set up a WiresX node on a moment's notice anywhere, because you have to have access to the internet router, and it has to be a service that allows you to have dedicated port forwarding. I won't go into the details, but you can't just get WiresX operating just anywhere. It has to work under certain circumstances. It requires bulky hardware. You must have, as you might remember the station I showed you, a mobile a power supply, the computer, the HRI 200. While these things might affect us in a bad way, that's the way it's designed and it has a purpose. It doesn't work so well for portability. Purchase and registration of an HRI 200 is an additional step in using WiresX, and we have no means of talking to anybody on DMR or other digital modes through the WiresX system. So what do we do? What comes next? What is coming along in amateur radio to make us more flexible? And that answer is hotspots. And you don't have to be on digital voice very long before you'll hear the topic. And Jim's got one going, I've got one going here, and it gives us the flexibility WiresX doesn't have. Now, keep in mind, I'm telling you all about WiresX because if Yaesu hadn't produced that, the hotspots wouldn't work. Hotspots are an appendage. They're a bonus feature that we can add to an existing implemented infrastructure that WiresX has. WiresX is important. We couldn't put repeaters on networks. We couldn't build this system of communications, but it still has limitations. The hotspot is the answer. Hotspots, as you can see Jim's, you can see mine, can be very, very small little devices. And Jim's is one that has been replaced by OpenSpot 2, but OpenSpot 1 works great.
OpenSpot 2 is so small. You can put it in the little
Yeah, you could lose it easily. This one is less expensive. It's very popular right now, called the Zoom Spot. That is a UHF antenna, 5 watts into it, and this nice little Raspberry Pi Zero will boot up and look for your local network and put you on the air to the room which you've set it up to work on. These guys are important to us right now because what's happening is people travel to motels, people travel to their work, they go places, and there's no way to haul a radio, power supply, and all that you need to get on the air. The hotspot is small, portable, low-power device. I can operate it 2 days off of this battery pack, and it will keep us on the air for that entire time. They've developed into a much more friendly device because now they're primarily oriented toward Wi-Fi. Jim's early device requires Ethernet, so that is another reason it's being upgraded. The boot time is getting faster. Some of them have flexibility as to VHF or UHF, and they're improving in their software and their ability to cross mode, so that if somebody has a DMR system, they can still be accessed by a System Fusion user. There are a lot of these on eBay, Amazon. Pete, KB1EO, is going to give us more of a seminar on that, a presentation in the future. He's working on some really interesting things. Pete is a Raspberry Pi expert, so he knows exactly how the tweaks and everything can be done, and he's working through that. So why are hotspots so effective, and how are they different? Well, they're effective because of their portability, their accessibility, all that goes with what we've already seen, and they operate through a system called a reflector. The reflector does just that. It isn't a host to a big infrastructure like WiresX. It's not the means to, and it's not the end itself, but rather it's a means to deliver. So it reflects, it takes whatever we transmit into it and sends it out, sends it on its way. That reflector will then go through the internet back to all these distributed little hotspot systems. Now, by themselves, they can only host so much. They can only do so much. They need to build on an infrastructure, so this reflector must be connected to something more. In the case of our Yaesu systems we're used to, we connect it to System Fusion or to WiresX. Here is an example of our friends down in Panama and what they have done and what they have shown here. They have their own Yaesu System Fusion room for Panama, and they show some of their repeaters that are directly connected by wires X, but they also show that they are connected through with different hotspots. Here is a DMR source that they are connecting through by way of hotspots. They're able to cross mode. Here is another digital mode. They're able again to connect through. How are they doing it? Through a hotspot. So that eventually you have what the CQ, excuse me, let me go to this example, what our friends in Britain have shown us, which is a sense for how far-reaching their room has now become by way of hotspots. So CQ UK is the original Wires X room from Great Britain, and they show access to users throughout the world, and they are basing this on ongoing communications that is existing. Many of them are local nodes and repeaters that are in the System Fusion, but then many of them are hotspots that link out into other parts of the world. So it becomes the appendage to Wires X that we all need to get portability. Some of you followed along with me. I went to Washington, D.C. about a month ago, took this along. I bought it just before the trip because I thought this is going to be my way to communicate back. I sat on the porch of our host's home in Washington, D.C. one morning talking to the Going to Work crew here in St. Peter, Mankato, connected to the darkroom. So it is very, very powerful when you add it to an existing structure. I want to go back to this. What we need to make hotspots work is we need what's called a bridge. It has to be a dedicated hotspot that has only one purpose. Its one purpose is to take what was our reflector and communicate that reflector to System Fusion. We need to be able to have a connection made. Without the connection made, the reflector stands on its own. With this bridging going on, a dedicated unit strictly connecting Wires X to the server, to this process of connecting to the rest of the hotspots in the world, we have now bridged the system together. So that is the means to getting it done. All right, you know somebody somewhere talks on Wires X room. Great source of fun. You want to talk to them, communicate, and you say, but I only have a hotspot, and they're on System Fusion. You cannot talk. There is no way for a hotspot to talk to somebody on Wires X. But somebody in that Wires X room says, you know what, I want to put up a bridge. I want to bring people from reflectors into System Fusion and join in on what we're doing. They buy a hotspot, they set it up with the function of being one thing, the bridge. The bridge that connects the System Fusion network over to the reflector. And now you have added to the system a whole new group of users. And that person who's out with the hotspot, nothing more, in their radio can be communicating to the whole network. So hopefully that makes sense and why we need to have a bridge. So you buy a hotspot, whether it's an open spot 2, whatever it is, and you say, good, I can talk to everybody in the System Fusion. I read about the rooms, I can connect up. You cannot. What you can connect to is the bridge. Everybody who has a bridge. So that does not exclude very many people because the numbers are growing. Minwis has a bridge, Texas Nexus, and on the list of popular growing System Fusion rooms have bridges. So the point is, yes, you can talk to everybody on System Fusion, but no, you can't pick and choose based on the Wires X catalog or network. You have to choose on who has hosted a bridge. So Shannon in St. Joseph has just connected his hotspot from the dark room to what's called FCS 429, and we have the dark room now on a reflector, and we're going to show you that here in a moment. Okay, let's compare the two. We had started with System Fusion nodes, and System Fusion nodes were great, and they put our repeaters on the air worldwide, and they did the job, but we knew it didn't have everything we needed. Now people are swinging the other way. Hotspots are the answer to everything. Gotta have hotspots. And they are great, but they each have a different purpose. So my point is to tell you, do you need a hotspot? Do you need a node? Depends. What are you doing with it? Let's talk about the comparison. Nodes give wires X control to the radio user, where hotspots require browser interface. Okay, what do I mean by that? All right, you come into our coverage area of one of the darkroom repeaters or our repeaters, and you say, you know, I'd really like to talk to my friends in the UK, or I'd really like to talk to the broad variety of people on AmericaLink. You take your radio, you bring up the wires X command, and you choose the number for AmericaLink or whatever group it is, and you bring the repeater onto AmericaLink. Perfect control. You as a user do it. But on a hotspot, I can't do that. Now, some are more friendly than others. Some claim you can access through wires X commands. I can't suggest you can do it reliably. So what I'm telling you is, for the most part, hotspots require a browser interface to do your changes. Now, if I am somewhere operating and I say, I want to put this on a different reflector room, I want to go to somewhere else. Well, here is my hard drive, and I can't do it. I can't do anything to edit it. Yes, if I had some fancy hardware I could, or if I'm on a network with another computer and this device, I can do it. But as it is, if I'm running around portable, I cannot. So what do I need to do? I need to do one of two things. I need to either put this on a network where I can access it by way of a computer, or I set up in advance my 3 most likely settings or rooms I want, and I reboot with a different SD card to get where I have to go. So that works, but that is not like wires X, which is super friendly and very capable. So there is a comparison. Our next comparison to consider is nodes run high power radios. There are people running their FTM 100s at 20 watts, providing community coverage or a long distance connection. What we mean by that is hotspots really are personal small area devices. Nodes are broad area, high power devices. Hotspots have poor sensitivity on their receivers. So I can take this and I can walk around my whole yard with my handheld and do fine. So for fun, I thought I'm going to put it on a better antenna. I have found that the best I can do is about a block away, and that's pretty much it. It's not only because of low transmit, it's because of poor receive. So it's designed that way. If you think about it, if they designed a very hot receiver in that little device, it would probably be jammed up and interfered with all the time. So it's designed for very small personal application. Nodes offer wires X stability, hotspots go down with latency. I get a kick out of listening to AmericaLink through the hotspot, and maybe Jim, you've heard this too. It gets to be crazy because there's so many users. If I showed you the room where AmericaLink is, sometimes there are over 100 nodes connected at one time. Yeah, and you can't get a word in edgewise. I mean, it's just one user after another, and it's fun because you hear so many different people, different stories. But what happens is the FCS reflector bridge and the YSF reflector bridge get so far behind that somebody is having a conversation from 30 seconds ago yet, and they haven't caught up, and it's just, there's just kind of an interference. It reminds me of the old days of Channel 19. You'd hear propagation come and go, and this person would come in and that person would come in. That's a lot of fun, it's neat, but the point is, hotspots produce latency beyond what the wires X infrastructure offers. So latency, by that I mean it just takes time. So I have seen times where what I hear off the hotspot is virtually almost 10 seconds delay from what the main system is doing. That normally won't happen, but it can happen under high traffic situations. So use a hotspot with the realization that if it works well, it's a good day. All right? And if you have delays, if you have problems, we just work through it. For the most part, they're getting better. I think they're trying to improve on the server quality, but wires X, it's rock solid, stable from my experience. and the latency is minimal. I think it's improved. I think latency is improved on Wires X. I'm seeing that myself. So nodes are more costly. Right now, if you set up a node station, you say, hey, that's the thing I'd want to do at my home. It would be about $450 minimum if we came up with the right combination. I'd say more like five and a half. Where Hotspots, this one, including case and everything, about $145. You can buy them cheaper, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're, I could guarantee what price point it would be. OpenSpot 2 is $250. OpenSpot, newest, latest, greatest. Yeah, it's going to go for more money. Still half the price, maybe, of a node. The only thing I would say about the best features in the world is they're still going through FCS and YSF reflectors. So in the end, your quality of service might be because of those servers rather than the great device you have.
It's just the use of it.
Yes,
How much use
it's a good quality device.
wireless, of course you need a rod.
Yeah.
And a nano rod.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see how everybody experiences it.
I have one someday. So.
Yeah, good. Looking forward to it. Hotspots only offer the reflectors, YSF, FCS slots. Yaesu gives you the entire Wires X world, which is huge. It's servers or users all over the world. Let's take a look at what I know of Pi-Star. This is the software I work from on this device. If you were connecting a computer to it through a browser, this is what you'd see. Really neat information. Pi-Star is wonderful software. It's Linux based for the Raspberry Pi. What you see going on here is, of course, you've entered your call sign into it. We are right now connected to 390, FCS 390, which is AmericaLink. And this shows you the log of ongoing activities, and it shows you call signs from those stations. And if you link to it, if it doesn't have any appendage to the call sign, if you link to it, it'll take you right to the QRZ database and tell you more about them. Really neat. So it's a good desktop device too. A lot of people are just using Hotspots at home.
Almost like looking at a note.
Like looking at a
Note.
Yes, it is. It's got its own layout, but it is. So you can be looking at all the information here. If you're listening to AmericaLink, you're listening to Minwis, or maybe the dark room. Okay, you were away for a few hours, you come back. Who was on the air while you were gone? What time did they show up? And so all this information is given. Wouldn't put too much stock in this. These are important for DMR. DMR really needs to be critically tuned. YSF is forgiving as can be with error correction built into it. So this is an example of what you would see and why you have to connect up a PC to do the settings changes. Here's an example of Pi-Star as we're changing rooms. We called, of course, reflector slots, FCS, choosing here FCS 0390, which is AmericaLink, highlighted, ready to select it. You can see it's been selected already. This shows you example of what can I connect to. One afternoon I connected to Wisconsin Link thinking, I don't know what kind of activity is over there. Had a couple guys chatting, and they're apparently using them frequently with their System Fusion network over there. Texas Nexus is very active, Alabama Link's very active, Southern California is very active. So you can be on your hotspot selecting these groups. You walk around with your handheld around the house and you're connecting to the world and these guys. You know, it's kind of fun because people are saying, well, this isn't radio. You'll hear that often. I said it. This isn't radio. You're relying on the internet. Well, what do you do on HF? You rely on propagation from the ionosphere. How is that going? You know, so in reality, as amateur radio operators, we just use what we can use. And if the internet goes down, a whole lot of us are hurting. So it isn't just us. But the point is, why not use it? And so I'm thinking, okay, it isn't radio, and you bet it is. Because when you connect to this group, you not only have a huge number of fellow hams, experimenters learning about this stuff, but when you transmit and talk, just imagine how many places in the world you're being heard. I mean, in AmericaLink, it's worldwide and it's constant. And I just wish you'd quiet the Brits down once in a while. They love to talk. The Brits just go and go. I'm saying that in fun because you know you have worldwide communications all the time. So who'd have ever thought you walk around on a portable, key it up, your call sign and your voice is being distributed perfectly throughout the world. What a neat system. And it can be done through the simple hotspot. Of course, you're using the infrastructure that's in place for us. So we need this. As amateur radio operators, we need this, and we need this flexibility, and there's more on that coming. All right, what I want to talk about quickly, and I won't keep us long on this because we want to do a quick demo. When you're using your WiresX commands, I'm really enjoying, because I said this before, so I want to repeat what I'm enjoying. We put up these repeaters and just saw the capability. I thought the best thing is if individual hams got used to using it. Okay, so you know, we set it up to connect to a specific room and there's nothing going on. I like it when you say, I'm going to figure out how to change rooms, and you get on and you use your WiresX commands, and all of a sudden now you're in Britain, or now you're talking to a guy in well, our friends, for example, down in Trinidad and Tobago. You can be talking to anybody you want to if you change rooms. So you want to learn how to use WiresX. And for that reason, I put up these videos on my YouTube channel, which is, oh, it's celebrity, believe me. You'll have to get in line, but it's just simply there to say good luck if you can follow my video. I'm trying to explain how do you get into using WiresX commands. I want you to know it because I want you to be able to have the freedom to do it. Now, UHF, we're largely connected to the dark room. If it stays there, that's fine. If somebody pulls it off to another room, it's going to time out and eventually go back. That's okay. We're using it a lot. Mankato, where users are changing it. Chuck's doing it. It's great. I love it when all of a sudden I hear all kinds of activity on the Mankato repeater. Oh, it's AmericaLink. Good. I'm glad it's being used. And VHF here, we're trying to kind of alternate between Minwis and AmericaLink. I've been hearing Jim using that lately. That's been fun. Of course, he's got his own. And you know, what is ham radio activity? It's not a dead repeater. I don't want to hear a dead repeater. So use your WiresX controls, get to know your radio change room. I can't tell you that I can explain to you how to use it on all radios at once because of the differences. So that's the reason for the videos that I've tried to produce. And learn the numbers of the rooms you want to connect to. That'll make it easier. So go back, as you saw the Yaesu browser page with all of the database of different rooms. Get to know the rooms you think you might like to try, and then have that room available, connect to it. I keep it handy on my phone just to remind myself. And the only thing I would say is be aware of ongoing activity before you change a room. It's possible you turn on your radio, you're ready to change a room, there's been an ongoing discussion, just so you know that. And you can't break anything. So do it. There's nothing to lose. Besides, your call sign's out there every time you transmit, so we gotcha. No, it doesn't matter.
You're also transmitting a unique ID of your radio. Every radio has a unique
yes.
ID.
Yeah. So I can even tell which radio you're using.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, that's cool. That's for us. And you know what? I love not having to ID by voice. You're legally ID'd when you transmit on your radio. The only thing that we ID for is mostly courtesy, and because a lot of people might hear the repeated transmission who aren't watching a digital screen, and so they're just hearing the voice. So it's just respect to give your call sign, but I don't have to worry about it. FCC has got all the call sign on me they'd ever want because it's in a constant 1 second loop off of our radios. So try it, experiment with it, that's the idea. And then as we incorporate hotspots, which you can try yourself, what we're doing is we want to flood the network with communications, because it's no good if it's not being used. And on top of that is a reality that we want your skill level ready for whatever we need, so that someday I'm not around, nobody's around, and you know something has to be done with connecting to a room. Do it, learn how, get the job done. That's great. All right. System Fusion is waiting on the edge of the precipice for this update that was promised to us in the summer. and people joking online, well, did they give up? Yaesu has a way of promising things that can't deliver as fast on schedule, but it's coming. They're going to provide an update whereby WiresX node stations will become far more easy to set up. You might say they're trying to get closer to the hotspot. What they're going to do is they're going to incorporate a direct USB cable to the radio without that HRI 200 interface, and they're also going to incorporate the use of the handheld as one of the node stations. So, in portability for WiresX, a computer, an FT2, the software running, connection to the internet, no more port forwarding, and you are on a WiresX node station. That has real possibilities for a lot of applications right now, and so we're anxiously waiting for that release. In their favor, I will say this: Yaesu rarely releases something buggy and not working. It did initially, but everybody does initially in this business, but they have been improving and improving. The bugs are going away. I'm guessing when they release this, they don't want to hear the crowd say it doesn't work. So they want to make sure it works. So I'm guessing that's the delay. So I'm telling you, there is a merger in a sense coming, or a closer alliance to the hotspot concept, but it's taking time. By the way, the port forwarding will be forfeited, but you cannot serve as a room anymore. That's the cool thing about the WiresX infrastructure, is you have the port forwarding and all the node requirements, because you're not only just a node station, you can be a host. So if part of the internet's down, and the internet is down to a given room you want to work, but you have another area of the internet that's up, you can host it. I'll give you an example. The dark room went down and it was no longer working as a room. I turned on my WiresX software room and I invited multiple users to come to my room. And just like that, my computer was the server, and everybody joined in on my room who could, until the normal service was restored. So that flexibility is really pretty powerful. But most people say, I don't need it. This is what's coming, hopefully soon. All right, I just mentioned this as ideas. I'm hoping for the day when our growth locally will encourage us to now have our own local regional type room. By that I mean, some of us have talked about the idea that sometimes with a net or other activity, distant activity kind of takes away from the local need, and I understand that. Remember, we have flexibility to do anything we want. We can set up a local room. We can set up a regional room. Future might be, with the addition of the Lee Center repeater and some of the growth we're hoping to see, if we can add someday Waseca, New Ulm, some of these other area communities, we have a real good reason to have a local room. What's that mean? You're a WiresX user. You're connected to the local rooms. You ID. Nobody in the immediate area is on the air. No active. So I got some drive time, or I just want to have some fun. Go to your radio, enable WiresX, connect to AmericaLink, connect to Minwis, connect to CQ UK. Check it out. See if anybody's there. There's no reason not to have an active repeater. So if we do go to a smaller future room, it gives us the flexibility to accept that, or to build by changing our own radios to have the option to go somewhere else. All right, dark room could become a secondary for us. We'll look at that as it grows, and again, changing rooms is the key to these major active rooms. The neat thing about WiresX software, and most of you know this, it's very flexible so that the node operator can know that while users are free to change the room, it will, after a timed interval, return back to whatever you had it set to. And that's really great, because it means that you can do whatever you want. Like, say, you're not going to break anything. It's really fun to accidentally connect to Japan. They don't stop talking. So you accidentally connect to Japan, and of course, you don't understand a word, not surprisingly, and they go and they talk and they talk, and you say, but I can't disconnect because they won't quit talking. I don't care, it's okay. We'll get our Japanese language lesson over with. You know, you can't hurt anything. All right, eventually it's going to time out, or maybe in a quiet moment you can finally hold that band button down and it drops it. But the point is, you'll be able to have the flexibility of doing what you want, and the node owner knows it'll keep control, it'll be in order, and it'll return back to where it needs to be. So Hotspots can offer that service of mobile or home use to any user, so that builds into the flexibility of what we do. So say for example there's a communications event, and that communications event is who knows where, Wasika, let's say that. Bring a hotspot there, connect your phone to internet to it, and then we're connected to your hotspot. Another person can connect their hotspot. You have events where you don't have a repeater, you don't have a node, but you each have hotspots. Okay, bring that back to, say for example, the southern Minnesota room. So what you could potentially do is you can fill in the gaps and still have a local event where you need local communications, but you have spots that don't have digital coverage. Add the hotspot personally, take it with you, function that way, so that you can keep communicating no matter what the situation might be. All right, we want to do some quick demos here. This worked out really well last time, so why not? Let's do it again just as a demo. All right, the hotspot here I'm using, again, I showed you the SD card. It has some simple ports. One of those ports, well, two of them will accept power. So I'm going to power it up. It does a cute little flash to let you know, yep, I got the power. And there is a little flashing little LED there to show boot activity or disk activity. Now, oh, I better turn on my hotspot, my phone hotspot. So what it's going to do is it's going to boot, and it will connect to my phone because that's one of the built-in networks to the software, and it just did. All right, so what are we going to be doing? We're connecting up. It's booting slowly, but it's getting there. I have this particular chip, this disk, ready to connect up to the darkroom, thanks to Shannon getting that back online. Okay, I'm going to the frequency that I am on for the darkroom, and let's see if it's booting up. K0CQW, WQ0A. It may not work because this is a demonstration, so it may not work. It was working at home. It does take a while to load, so I'm a little impatient with the process here. I don't know that I have. I'm sure someone does. WQ0A test. It's possible that because, oh, there it goes. Okay, did I come through? Okay. K0CQW, WQ0A. There's the latency.
There you go.
Notice it'll go red when this transmits, and it goes green when I'm receiving. Hi, John. Good morning to you. We're doing a demonstration here of a hotspot, and I just wanted to see if we could take advantage of just saying hi to you. Back to you, John. And when this transmits, I'm on a different channel, by the way, totally different channel. When this transmits, it goes red.
Yeah, you're coming in great, and I'm out in western Minnesota, and I live kind of west of the town of New London. And then Mobile, and it is snowing. And I'm off to the hardware store to get some stainless steel bolts for the install of an antenna, hopefully someday. Back to you, White, K0CQW.
That was synced almost perfectly. That came through the reflector. Okay, John, very good. You can keep that snow. We've been thankful not to have any yet, but pretty damp, rainy day nonetheless. Thanks for helping with our demonstration. Glad Shannon got the hotspot radio in place, so we have the bridge. And we'll continue in our discussion here and enjoy that antenna project in the snow. WQ0A. So that latency might seem bad to us here, but on the air discussion,
Yeah, sounds
you just get used to it.
Today we're just going to grab some of the parts and get organized for the next day. And just so everyone knows, it's going to be on Thursday and Friday, it's going to be 72 degrees in St. Peter. Everyone there, have a good day. K0CQW.
Okay, so that put me on the air in the dark room. You could have it at home, you could have it in a motel, you could have it other end of the world. I was sitting on a porch in Washington, D.C. That's how I did it. So I'm going to quickly drop this one. Let's say, okay, nobody on the dark room. I want to change rooms. A little messy, but it works. I'm going to grab the SD card I had set up for the America Link, and then we're going to see what Jim's got going after that.
What do you call that message?
Well, if you're driving a vehicle, it's not, which I don't, of course, advocate.
Wait another 5 minutes for it to boot up.
Well, that's true too. That is true too. I mean, in our world today, this is how we do it. We touch the screen and it's supposed to be done right now. Because obviously this is not that kind of a situation. And honestly, I'm very thankful there are hams around the world willing to figure this stuff out, because this is largely British effort on their knowledge of the Pi board and what they can do. And you know, I got to give them credit. I could not have done this, and I couldn't even try. So yeah, it's great, great stuff. Go ahead, John.
With that latency, you don't have to take the ball timing and when it's done, then you talk or you add on.
You know, the thing to remember is, yes, if you start talking right away, there's already kind of a pause built in because of latency. But if you do start talking right away, what if somebody else is on a FCS reflector and they want to jump in and just get into the conversation? In that case, you got to give them an opportunity. So it's still good to pause. You know, we hit and miss on that. Sometimes we're better at it than others. But it's just good to remember, if somebody else wanted to get in, I just got to give that extra pause. Thanks, good question. Okay, and I should be booting to America Link here. And that should get us on the air with that. Usually there's somebody already on the air for us, but give it just a second more.
Well, you know, you got a frequency tuned in on that. That's
Just
talking to that.
Yes, just a simplex radio. That's all it is. Thank you for asking. Good question. So I can be in my yard, I can be all over. I can't go over a block away, but you know, and that's in my basement. I can still work it fine around the yard. So what is the radio link? The radio link is from here to here, and then this is looking for a Wi-Fi link, which I give it from my phone.
Those huge 20-foot antennas on your vehicles will be gone.
Actually, there's some truth to that. So as we were driving across country to DC, I actually found a spot that was intended in my vehicle to hold sunglasses or door openers or whatever, and I stuck it up there. And you wouldn't know I had anything like this in the car. So I was listening to the dark room and occasionally talking, just like that. You're right. And those 20-foot antennas with HF conditions the way they are, don't do much for you either. So.
Are you using just FM, simplex to talk to your
Digital simplex.
digital simplex?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. C4 FM all the way. You'll hear people who go to analog, but they're interfacing analog through wires X. These will not accept analog.
Okay.
They are purely digital modes. And what you'll notice when you hear some wide open squelch or horrendous audio, be aware of two things. America Link is full of DMR radios that can really have out of control audio, and they're full of analog repeaters and nodes, which people still don't use tones. And you get wide open squelch. I don't know why. So the thing about America Link, it's kind of the wild, wild west. If it were my room, I'd have those people out of there right now. You know, not a courtesy email, but after that, if they don't shut it off, they're disconnected. Wires X lets you block people. You have to be able to keep things under control. And so I would just absolutely cut them off. But we have one guy in Australia. I don't know, maybe too many, whatever reason, he had to have an open squelch analog system, and it was just horrible. And nobody running AmericaLink seems to worry about it. They just let it happen. But I like the flip side of it. Just all kinds of people who don't know what they're doing. This is their first time on the air. How does this work? They know they'll get a hold of somebody, and good experienced users are there to help. So it's pretty cool. All right, connected up. You didn't hear it, but there was a little odd little voice that comes out of the hotspot saying connect. So it told me that I was on AmericaLink. This is WQ0A doing a quick demonstration of a hotspot on AmericaLink if anybody is available for a demonstration. Some days you get 3 answers, depending on the day. It can get pretty busy.
This is Kilo Delta 9 Golf Charlie X-ray. Go ahead.
KD9DCX, I believe it is. Good morning. Name is Mike. Located in St. Peter, Minnesota, southern Minnesota. And we're just giving a presentation on hotspots, and I wanted to see if I could say hi to someone on AmericaLink so they can see it underway. Thank you for coming back. Back to you.
This is Kilo Delta 9 Golf Charlie X-ray. This is Bob. I live in Appleton, Wisconsin. So it says on the display that you're about 280 miles away. So
Which is what I'm showing
you're
here.
coming in clear. Go ahead.
You say Bob? I thought he said Bob, yeah. Okay, Bob, thank you very much. Even though we're good neighbors in the Midwest, great signal, and it shows we can work Wisconsin or we can work the world. So thank you for the good report, and appreciate it. We'll continue our discussion here about hotspots, but you're sounding great here, and hope to talk to you again soon. 73 for now. WQ0A. That's the disadvantage.
Kilo Delta 9 Golf Charlie X-ray. Have a good day. Clear.
My coordinates here are at home. I couldn't get GPS reception down here, but I default my FT2 to my coordinates at home because I can't get them in my basement at home either. So if we were out in the open with GPS, we'd have exact location information. That is a disadvantage of the economy line that Yaesu has released, is that no GPS. So you just simply lose that, you forfeit that. And you say, well, I can live without that for savings of a couple $100 or whatever the case. And that's good. But once you do have it, it's pretty likable. It's very nice to have. So anyway, there we go. 2 different rooms. We had it pre-programmed. If you're bored and on a trip and you want someone to keep you company, you plug in AmericaLink. It's constant talk. And I'm not saying it's always talk I want to hear, but it's constant. Yeah, it was yesterday. I heard a little of that too. I turned it on to the VHF repeater. And you know, the neat thing, we got Chuck, we got Jim, and we have others who take it on their own to say, hey, the repeater's quiet. I'm going to bring up AmericaLink. I'm going to bring up Minwis. That's super. Because we're in a time in technology where we should be able to do that, and we can do that. And it really adds another dimension to amateur radio. So that's all I have. Jim, you want to...
I don't really have much I can do because I can't get connected here. So.
Okay, it isn't giving you an Ethernet?
Everything is yours. It's just the fact that I've got twice as much power as he does. This one puts out 20 milliwatts, this puts out 10. So I'll probably get 2 blocks covered.
You could. Well, the thing about it too is that if you don't like the coverage, you put your phone in your pocket and you put this in your pocket and you got coverage. So walk everywhere you want. So, you know, it doesn't replace a repeater, and there's nothing neater than having wide area coverage on a single repeater because...
Big advantage of the Zoom hotspot. Big advantage.
Yeah.
Very portable.
Yeah, and it's because of Wi-Fi too. Yeah, where the original hotspots did not have Wi-Fi.
You gotta have a connection to the internet.
Yeah.
Wireless through a router.
Right.
But you could do that too with your phone. Your phone is your internet source. And
that's what we're doing. Yeah.
And use these little pocket-sized routers.
Right.
to that router and you're portable.
Right.
So you got more expense again.
Well, it depends on how you do it.
$300.
It depends on how you want to do it.
So you're talking about $300
Yeah.
so altogether.
Yeah, and really a lot of people are just happy to use existing